Hey, Riding Side Saddle, we're back. It's Tammy.
And Lisa.
And it's the end of season 5. Whew. Yep.
Here we are. Can you believe it?
It's the end of season 5. It's also the end of 2023.
It is.
Yeah. It's December. It's not quite the end, but it's close enough.
It's the end for us because we're going to take a couple of weeks off.
Right.
For the holidays, just very similar to what we did last year.
Right.
To spend it with family and do all of the things that we do in order to prepare for, you know, the holiday season.
Right, right. Take a little pressure off ourselves too. So,
yeah.
So this episode is normally we do like an end of season recap. So we're changing that just a tiny little bit. We might touch on a few things that we've talked about throughout season 5, but we're going to change that a little bit and talk about really more just 2023 in review.
Just the year.
The year in review as opposed to the season in review.
Yeah.
So, and not even necessarily as it specifically relates to Riding Side Saddle year in review.
Agree.
It is really just 2023 in review. So we're changing this format a little bit. And then in season 6, at the beginning of 2024, we're going to change that just a tiny little bit. So we are going to be focusing on our book because we didn't read a book club.
You're right. We didn't
for
pick
season
one.
5.
Correct.
Right. And that was intentional. We talked about it. We had one in mind. And then we said, you know what? Let's not, because the next book we want to read is like, that is when we're going to do a deep dive.
It's juicy. It's
right.
Real juicy. It's conceptual and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to start season 6 with this book club and we're going to let that ride as long as it needs to ride. And if we're a little short, then we'll pick up with our regularly scheduled program. But
we're going to roll with it.
We are going to roll with it. We'll just figure it out as we go. So those are a couple little program changes. But it will still be very much the same sort of format where Lisa and I are talking. It's not just the book.
No. I think
the book is a good conversation starter.
Do you want to share the name of the book?
Yeah, I would.
And the author?
It's Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD. So it says Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype.
Yeah. So
I think of Mary. When I say that, I think of Mary.
I entirely agree with that. I'll be honest. I have started this book.
Oh, you have?
I can't even tell you how many times I've started this book.
Okay.
And I've said this before in different book club
books
previously. Yeah. I am not a reader. No. I am a listener.
Right.
And I have this book. It is a physical book, and I have tried to read this book. And I have failed, not because it's a bad book or because I'm not interested, but because when I sit down to read, I get really tired and then I fall asleep.
Puts you to sleep.
Yes.
So you get a page or two and then you're out cold.
Well, I've made it through like 2 or 3 chapters of this throughout the period of time, which has been an extended period of time that I've tried to read it. And it's fascinating.
Okay.
It is absolutely about archetypes. It is absolutely about like folklore types of things that that transcend through women for generations and generations and generations. And it's going to be probably like, I imagine it as it's going to launch off lots of conversation.
Gotcha. We've not read a book like this yet.
No. That's why I think that we have to give it its
full due
space to be able to unfold the way it's going to unfold.
That's fair.
And I'm really, really excited about it.
Good. I am too. I bought the book. The pages are really thin.
And
that's what I noted. And it's a fat book.
Yeah. And
so there's a lot.
The type is really small,
it
too.
Is. I need a lot of tabs.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
So while everyone knows I don't like gifts, but if anybody wants to give me something, I'll take some tabs.
Point taken.
Just the little ones.
Point taken. That's really funny.
Yeah. So that will be season 6.
It's going to be very
start
exciting.
Of season 6 for sure.
I feel like I'm going to unearth things that I don't know that I could ever prepare for
Right.
throughout this process.
Right.
I'm very interested in doing that for myself,
Yeah.
just like from a self-development perspective. And I really, 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 I know we say this all the time, but I really would love to hear from different people as we continue to go through this book and share our own experiences, how those concepts may be coming through in your own life.
Right. I agree. I think, well, because we are going to do this book more slowly.
Yeah.
We're not going to plow through and skip big sections. We intend anyway to really, again, do a deep dive. There will be plenty of time for people to chime in. And offer up their own stories. So,
Absolutely.
So I hope that does happen too. So that'll be next season. 2023 is a humdinger of a year for you. I am just wrapping up. So when we had Mary on and talking about, I'm not doing things I don't want to do anymore. And then we had Rhonda who said, follow your dream. Yeah. Essentially the same thing. Like, don't do things you don't want to do. And the creativity episode that we had,
was, in fact,
all three of those back to back to back. I have, and I said it during at least one episode, that I have really, really been pulled to do pottery.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened. I went in my studio, I got my wheel ready, I got some clay, I got it all wedged up, I'm ready to go, and I step on the pedal and it's not moving like it's supposed to. Yeah, it moves, but it is not spinning fast at all. And I still tried to, maybe I can make it work. It doesn't work that way. So I felt like, we had talked with Mary about, so she wanted, what she needed to do was go away, shut out all the noise, and heal her soul, process a lot of big stuff.
Yeah.
And the universe put her in like one of the most populated places she could pick.
Mm-hmm.
And it ultimately had to be your choice. Are you really serious about this or not?
Right.
Right.
You need to decide.
Here's A, you could do this by yourself, even though there's a lot of people around. Or B, you don't have to do any of this work at all and just be distracted by people.
Right.
She had to essentially prove that she was serious. I feel like the same thing is happening to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So now my wheel is broken. It's not like I used it. It just, I turned it on and now it's not working right. These things just happen, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Are you really serious? It's $100 part.
Right.
It's not a fortune. It's
No.
not, I don't need a whole new wheel for $1,000.
But are you going to put it in front of you as an excuse?
Exactly.
Now this is...
Yeah, so now I can't be creative. I was going to do that, but now I can't. How serious are you, Tammy? Put your money where your mouth is, kind of thing.
It's true.
It is true. So
So
that's
are you
how
putting your money where your mouth is?
I've got, yes.
Good for you.
And so while I was looking at this, I think it's a part in the foot pedal that's broken as opposed to the wheel itself. But while I was down there looking around at stuff, I realized, so on my wheel, there's a switch that you can toggle to turn the wheel head counterclockwise or clockwise. And so that's broken. I mean,
in addition to
it's broken in the way that is beneficial for me because that's the way that I need the wheel to spin in order for me to use it. But because I'm right-handed. But I thought, while I'm down here, I may as well just fix it. Right. So you never know when somebody who is left-handed might want to try, like you. You may want to try it someday.
Maybe this is the sign.
Maybe it is. So I've got those two components, those two parts in my cart, and I will check those out and get them ordered.
Click submit order.
Yep, that's it.
You do know, though, that I'm a lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty.
Yeah, I do know that.
So I don't even know how I would actually use a wheel. It might be a righty style.
I think if I am on the opposite side of you, I think it will work. If I stand behind you and try to do it, I don't think it will work.
Like Ghost?
That is not going to be.
That's weird.
Yeah, we're not doing that, Lisa. In fact, I'm just going to leave that part broken.
Now that I rethink about this.
Actually, it will just be for me. And it's fine the way it is.
Don't ghost me.
No, you made it too weird. Lisa's superpower.
Actually, that's Scott's superpower, but it has rubbed off on me sometimes.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has. It's not just his superpower.
I'm a good runner-up.
Well, you did a good job today.
Good.
Yeah. So I am, trying to work on that for myself and get my creative spark back and
Good for you.
yeah, carving out some time for myself.
So really, like, we talked about that a few episodes back, and you, like, were in the crux of it. You were like, why is this a problem for me? Why can't I do this? And then you moved past that phase.
Right.
To be able to say, you know what? So stop already.
Right.
Like, quit allowing the barriers to stand in front of you. And then another one came up, a physical barrier, like logistical.
It did. Yes. That is not an insurmountable barrier, however. And interestingly enough, just today, I realized part of the block that I'm having. So I'm not a production potter, right? So a production potter is somebody who makes the same piece over and over and over and over and over and over again. I'm not that. I mean, I honestly, I'm barely more than a baby potter because I just don't spend enough time to really, you know, get my skill
to do
tightened
it,
up.
refined.
So, right. That doesn't mean that I couldn't make the same piece multiple times. And it occurred to me, I was looking at Facebook and I saw somebody's post. That it was their first like craft fair they were doing. And so was their table with all their stuff out. And it really, like, I looked at it, I was like, this, I just cannot, none of it felt good to me. And it wasn't about their quality of work at all. It was about the display. And this was the first time I realized this is part of my block. I will make one or two of something and then that's it. Well, what am I going to do with one or two of something?
Yeah.
Right? It isn't enough to make a display for me, because when I see that, it looks like a thrift store to me.
Right.
Again, it's not the quality of their work, and there's nothing wrong with thrift stores.
It's a little hodgepodge.
Yes, and I don't do well in that environment. Like, my brain goes into, like, it starts to sizzle. It doesn't feel good to me. It's too much. I can't focus. I can't find a single thing that I would want to buy in this whole store because it's all too much.
Yeah.
It's
too much input.
Yes. Then I remembered, so that's what I saw in this picture on this post, that was like, oh, that's just way too much. There's too many things here. You need like 3 or 4 different things, but make several of those things. Like, make a dozen of each, right? Or 2 dozen or whatever, but not like 75 different things. You could have 75 pieces total, but there can only be 3 or 4 different kinds, right? And she had like 50 different things in 75 pieces.
Right.
So that it occurred to me,
it's overwhelming to you.
Right. That, and I don't buy a lot of other people's pottery, not for any real reason other than I just don't. But the times that I have, it's been because they have had very small numbers of things. So it'd be like they've got mugs and they've got bowls and they've got pitchers, for instance. And that's it.
Right.
They don't have ring holders and soap dishes and,
candle holders.
Yes, and old.
Right.
Yeah, that's too much for me. It's the color palette all coordinates so my eye can stop and focus. Otherwise, my eye, like, it's all over the place. It's too much input. My brain starts to sizzle and I'm out.
Right.
So I think that is part of my block. If I made a dozen of 3 different things, then I would feel like now I have a display, as opposed to I've got a higgledy-piggledy mess. Nobody wants this.
Well, and I think
not even me.
To one of the points that you had made in the episode where we were talking more specifically about this was you find flaws in a lot of your work.
Yeah.
So if you're making multiple pieces of the same thing, you can refine some of those inconsistencies out as you continue to develop your skill, and that will help you feel more confident in that, as opposed to 50 different items where you've only tried it once or twice, and you
Right.
see all of the unique little variances,
Right.
maybe not even flaws, but variances.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, I could have done that differently or better or in a different manner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that feels more peaceful for
It does.
for your mind and your
Right.
heart.
Right. So
Yeah, I like
perhaps
that.
I unblocked another block.
I love
another
that.
creative block.
Well, you better submit the order then.
Done.
It's time.
It's done.
All right.
All right.
Right when we're done with this episode, because I can't do it now.
I can't do it right now. But it is done because I'm doing it. So
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to hear that update tomorrow.
Very, very good.
Me and Patrick Swayze will be asking you.
Lisa, you just made it weird again.
You are welcome. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's where I am ending my 2023.
I love that
Yeah.
for you.
Thanks. But you, little girl,
Ugh.
yeah, you are in a humdinger of a whirlwind.
You know, gosh, I have been reflecting so much. Maybe not at the beginning of this year, or even like probably 3/4 of the way through this year,
Or
because
the beginning of December.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of months, I would say,
Yeah.
I've been able to reflect a bit more. And honestly, we're talking about a year end for 2023. But if I'm being entirely fair and honest, I think that this phase for me has honestly started probably 2 years ago. So even a year before the podcast started. However, in this last 12 months, and literally to almost to the day, 12 months has been a really challenging and very challenging and an enormous learning experience for many people in my immediate family. And I know that I've talked a little bit about it as, even as early as last January, I think I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been hit by a whirlwind. And that whirlwind honestly did
continued.
not stop throughout
Yeah.
the whole year. Tonight, before we came and met up for this recording, I checked in with both of my daughters to confirm. I said I would like to share a little bit of what's happening in our lives as part of this episode, and I got their permission to do that. So I'm not going to share like vast amounts of details because it's not my story.
Yeah.
And that's what is kind of the unique thing about this for me in this last year, is everything that has transpired has actually been happening more around me as opposed to directly to me.
Mhm.
I've been sucked into it just because of proximity and
Well, they're your kids.
they're my
Even
children.
if they're grown or nearly grown, they're
Yes.
still your children.
Yes, yes. So I'll just start.
Jump right in.
I don't even really know how to do this, but I guess I'm just going to like embrace that aspect of vulnerability that I've been talking about all year.
Yeah. That's big for you.
It is an enormous thing. I'm absolutely crying and holding every bit of that back in this moment because it's hard. It's really, really hard for me to be able to share things like this, even with permission.
Right.
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 So yeah, I guess
Here we go. Yeah.
So last December, it was early December when I realized that my daughter was having issues with anxiety and depression. And we went to the doctor and tried to support her with medication to be able to do that. And throughout the course of
And therapy too.
Yes, she was having, she was already in therapy prior to last December for several months. And it did not seem to be helping and supporting to the degree that it needed to. So we went the pharmaceutical route. But by the end of December, things really started to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And she was diagnosed with anxiety and severe depression. Lots of other things were taking place, which did not help that in any manner. School things, social anxiety types of things. Throughout, all of her junior year of high school, essentially, she was really having substantial mental health challenges. It got to the point where we ended up with her junior year not homeschooling, but doing like a virtual version of school, so that she was not having to attend the high school directly.
Because of the social anxiety and issues she was having with her group of friends and things like that.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Because of, ultimately, because of social anxiety.
That's really the crux of it. Is that it?
Well, at that point, that's what I thought.
Okay.
So what I thought was social anxiety,
Yeah.
and, managing some things that she was experiencing because of unique factors that had happened. She kind of lost her friend group at school. She had a bad breakup, and things that I thought were very environmental and situational. I've learned throughout the course of the last year are much, much, much deeper than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's big.
It was very big.
Because some of that sounds
like a teenager.
Almost like typical. Yeah.
Kind of like, you know what? Teenagerhood sucks sometimes. And
breakups are hard.
It throws
and they
you
feel
for a
very
loop.
deeply.
And right. And all of your hormones are rushing around.
And yes. Right.
All of those things.
Right.
So up front, I thought it was more environmental and situational.
Yeah.
And over the course of the last year, like truly hitting bottom, to the degree that, I've been concerned about suicide. We have peeled several layers of the onion back to identify that it is less about the situation and more about, honestly, an undiagnosed ADHD.
Wow.
Attention deficit
Wow.
Disorder.
So social anxiety is a result of ADHD, or they sometimes go hand in hand?
In her case, undiagnosed ADHD, which is very challenging to diagnose in women or young women, much different, that it presents much differently than it does in boys and men. In my opinion, and as I talk to her more and we start to really kind of, continue to peel back all of these layers, it has caused an enormous issue with self-esteem and self-image, and that in turn, like, really connects into
like
depression and anxiety, and social anxiety is at the top of that list.
I can see how that would feed social anxiety.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's, it has been a really, really challenging year for my daughter. Everything has turned completely upside down. She was to the point where she could not function in a school environment. She stopped working. Like, to get her to go to therapy on a regular basis was an accomplishment. To get her to leave her room was an accomplishment for
again, because of the depression, right?
For a number of months.
Wow.
I will say that in the last few months, with her diligence and my diligence, honestly, and a lot of banging my head against the wall, in theory, she has made some really substantial improvements. She's not necessarily, you know, in a great place, but she
not out of the woods.
She has a lot of learning to do.
Yeah.
We have a lot of learning to do, but she is in a place where she is moving in the right direction.
And you have found some really great resources for her too.
Absolutely.
So she's been officially diagnosed,
She
as
has.
opposed to this just being out there. She's officially diagnosed with ADHD
Yes.
and social anxiety. So now you can actually start to treat these things.
And understand what resources are available
Exactly.
and behavioral modifications and
Right.
support her in that manner to
Right.
help her understand who she is.
And how her brain works.
Yeah.
Right.
Understand. Well, there's a couple of things, right? To be able to position herself and her self-image in a way to say, this is unique, beyond what, you know, for her to understand that she is a unique individual and it may not necessarily fit into the mold that, you know, society has expectations around, but that there are amazing benefits to be able to be that person as well.
That's pretty cool.
Um,
So finding ways for her to love herself on top of ways for her to function and tips and tricks for her to, you know, work with her brain the way it works.
inside of societal expectations.
Right.
Yes.
And love herself on top of that.
Absolutely.
That
And
is so
even more
important.
importantly, that,
Absolutely.
right? Because that is an aspect of her that has been diminished greatly.
Sure. I can imagine that would help ease some of that social anxiety. If she loves herself, you can feel more confident in social situations.
Yeah.
That was a question.
Well, yes, I believe so.
Okay.
We're not
You're
there
not there
yet.
yet. Okay. I'm
We're not
sorry,
there
I'm
yet.
jumping the gun here.
Yeah, like in theory, that's what I hope for, right? I think that there's a lot of work to do. I also have recognized how the two of us trigger one another.
Ooh, that's big for your relationship.
It is really big. It has required both of us to really evaluate and analyze and reflect on who we are
Yeah.
individually and together. And that did not come easy
No.
for a really long time throughout the course of this year. But we have both evolved and learned a number of things about ourselves and about how we click together. In fact, today was a really great example of us kind of growing through some things that would have absolutely, like, we would have been at the bottom of the bucket
a year ago. Yeah.
or even 6 months ago.
Wow.
We would have been straight at the bottom. And today we managed through some really big triggers
Yeah.
in support of one another, as
Ugh.
opposed to continuing that spiral downwards.
That's so wonderful.
Between the two of us. Yeah.
Growth it's
So
hard.
fucking hard.
It's hard and it's not linear.
No. Which that by itself is a really big challenge for me. I'm
Yeah.
a 1,
Right.
right? I am a perfectionist.
Yeah.
So my growth through this last year, everything that I had thought I needed to do to be able to motivate her as her mother, to get her to strive towards, achieving goals for her whole entire life up until 15, 16 years old, was absolutely wrong. For her. And that's been a really challenging thing for me to recognize and understand, because that's how my brain works. Like, our brains do not work in the same manner. And
right. If you just did this, it would be fine.
Right.
And her brain goes berserk.
Right.
It will never be fine if I do this.
Right. It does not work that way.
Right.
So she has had to make some really substantial adjustments, and I have had to make really substantial adjustments in this last year. And they have been hard fought.
I can only imagine. I think that is one of the most difficult parts of being a parent, is looking at your child and parenting them the way that they need to be parented.
Correct.
Not the way you want to parent them.
Correct.
Or that is hard.
It is enormously hard to separate and observe, as opposed to, well, this is how this works. This is how I need this, so this is how I'm going to deliver it.
This is what you will do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's the difference between adapting to needs as opposed to requiring conformance. And that has been a really, really, really big shift for me. Because I was not raised that way. I was raised in a expectation of conformance.
Right.
These are the rules. You will follow them. One way or another.
Right.
You will follow them. And that's the way I parented. It's the way I parented my older daughter. It's the way I parented my younger daughter for most all of her life, until everything just came,
until it really fell apart,
tumbling
and you saw
down.
She was in big trouble.
And I saw my part in that. It's been a really, really big challenge this year. And we are not out of the woods. We have an enormous amount of learning to do. As you were talking about, from a linear perspective, I'd really like to be able to say, things are looking up. Things are great. But the reality of the situation is things are good, right? If I look back a year ago, things are substantially better than they were a year ago. And I also recognize at the same time that, we have some work to do. Right. And that's not linear, and days are different, and situations are different, and her patterns, right? Her patterns are different, and her motivational and desire is different. But we still work on it. We're still working hard.
Well, honestly, I think it's remarkable that you're still working hard together.
Yeah.
So our kids are not the same age. And so there's, a big age gap between your youngest and my oldest.
Yeah.
Mental health was not, it was not really something discussed.
I don't know that it's still discussed now.
It isn't, but it really wasn't then.
Yeah.
So when one of my kids was really struggling, I did what I knew to do. I took her to a doctor. I took her to a therapist, and it wasn't what she needed. I'm still not sure what she actually needed in that moment, but those things weren't working. Yeah. And things did continue to escalate. The fact that, and I know things escalated. I'm not saying that you figured it out, easily and quickly. It's been a struggle for sure. But you're figuring it out.
Trying.
Right.
We're trying.
You're figuring it out.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you won't have moments where old patterns and some old, communication styles. It is not linear. And sometimes it's easy to fall into some old patterns and some old habits. I do think, though, that you're at a point where you recognize, I'm doing that thing that I really don't want to do in this situation. and I'm feeling myself start to do it. So you can then choose to do something different.
Well, and the other part about it too that I'm really exceptionally proud of her for is that she is capable of communicating to me sometimes. Right. There is a really big difference for me between reaction and response. And it takes me a whole lot to recognize when I'm reacting and shift gears into responding. And that does not happen automatically. And my reaction is oftentimes you will conform.
That habit, the pattern, right?
Yes.
It's what you know.
Yes. So we've worked very hard to like say, listen, time out. I can't with you right now. And we both have to do it. And we go to our separate spaces.
Ooh, that's hard.
And then come back and say, listen, I did not do that well at all.
Yeah.
And I recognize what that did to you. And we have to try this again.
Wow.
It's not easy. It takes a whole lot. It has taken a whole lot. And we're going to trigger each other again and again and again, but we continue to learn. And
wow.
And for the young woman a year ago who could not communicate with me when I was in that space, she does now.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for both of you.
Thanks. So it has been a whirlwind from that perspective. And we continue to grow, both of us.
That feels good. You continue to grow, both of you. Not separately. Not, I'm leaving, right? You are continuing to grow and support each other. That is spectacular. I'm really happy for you.
Thanks. When I look at it from a higher level perspective, I feel the same way.
When you're stuck in it,
every day is very different.
It is. And it's hard.
Yeah. It is not easy.
For both of you, it's hard, right?
Yes.
And you're both doing your best in any given moment. And I love that you can respect and love each other enough to sometimes say, I need a minute.
Yeah.
This is going to end very badly if we continue. So let's take a breather and we'll come back and we'll try again.
Yep.
Rather than continuing to push until somebody breaks.
Well, and what's also interesting is, she had identified specific things that I didn't even realize that I was doing. And I had been doing them for some time. So, through this process of depression and anxiety, she isolates and she shuts down. So I had a really hard time trying to get her to communicate with me, not just in this last year, but for a good couple, 2-3 years already. So unbeknownst to me, when I was driving her someplace and it was just her and I in the car together, I would start to try to talk to her about particular things or like things that we needed to discuss. And usually they were conflict things. So, because I couldn't reach her, I couldn't get her in any other type of environment because she would isolate, she'd walk away, she just wouldn't engage. And then she had said to me, she's like, you cannot do that to me in the car because I feel very trapped.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I didn't even know that I had done that, right? Like I have things I have to say to you or things that I would like you to have conversations with me about. And I'm going to do it in the car because you cannot get away.
Captive audience.
Yes.
I see why she would feel trapped.
Yes. Like it.
But the other side of that is then you have to give me some space where we can have a conversation where you aren't running away
Yep.
and isolating. And
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So through the course of time, we agreed that it wouldn't be in the car. I wouldn't come into her room to do it because
then she has nowhere to go.
Well, and that's also her very safe space.
Right.
But if we had to talk about something, that she would come into a neutral area in the kitchen or the living room, whatever, and we would talk about it there. And she has followed through with that. Like we're pretty deliberate about that.
Nice.
Not that we don't trigger each other, because we do.
Right.
Like there's still dynamic there.
Sure.
But like there's some ground rules, and when either of us cross those ground rules, we do work to kind of pull that back in the right place.
Right.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a lot of love and respect right there.
It has been really hard.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part about this, and I have said it a million times in this last year, I am very grateful for the support systems and the hospitals and the psychologists and psychiatrists that have helped her through this process in the last year. We do not spend enough time on mental health at all, recognizing it, supporting it, and purely from a selfish perspective, helping the people around the mental health issue. So as a mother of somebody who needed some really substantial intervention, she got intervention and she got support that she needed to help her navigate. And it is, we've done a variety of different interventions in the last year for her. And I have said in every opportunity, I do not know what I'm doing.
That is so hard as a parent.
Like, you do realize that you're helping her, and then she comes home into an environment that may or may not be helping her. Right. So everything that you're doing may be like completely falling apart the minute she steps home, because there is no support for the support people.
Right.
To know how to handle this.
Right.
Like what to do. Like, even talking about triggers, like we had to figure that shit out ourselves. It's,
we're still falling way short.
The direction that we had received was make sure the beds are put away, make sure that there's no sharp objects. Well, that is the very bare minimum.
Yeah.
But like, to be able to grow and to support and to understand, even, like, there's nothing.
Right.
There has been nothing that I'm aware of. I shouldn't say there's nothing. There's been nothing that I've been made aware of to support through this process.
To support you as the support person.
Right.
Yeah.
Or teach me.
Right.
Anything.
Right.
It's been a bit of a shit show from that regard.
That's really interesting, because we have like, I'm thinking about when somebody has surgery, right?
Yeah.
And then they go home, and oftentimes there is you come home with a caretaker, right?
List. Right.
So,
things.
if your husband, I don't know, has foot surgery and you're the wife, you're the caretaker, then
right.
Here's a list of medication.
Change the
this
bandages.
Is how you take care of him.
Right.
This is, you make sure he doesn't do this.
Here's your to-go
Here's
kit.
how you give him, to get in the shower. Here's, yeah. Like they give you a list of instructions.
Yes.
But not when it's mental health care.
No.
Other than no meds and no sharp objects.
Right.
Well, okay.
That's helpful.
Anything else?
Thanks.
Right.
So that has been a really big piece of the year.
Yeah.
a really big piece, and it's been deeply personal. So I was grateful when she agreed to allow me to share tidbits of this. I would like to in the future, maybe not season 6, maybe season 7, or sprinkled somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Mental health is, gosh, it is enormous, and we don't, as a society,
underrated.
Spend any amount of time with it at all.
Right.
So
I agree.
I'd like to be able to do that as part of writing Side Saddle in the future. It's real near and dear to me.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, where it was pretty much invisible in the past for me.
Right. I think if, I mean, I don't know, obviously, but if mental health care had been better, even 15 years ago, one of my daughters wouldn't have suffered as much as she did.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think her life could have taken some very different paths that weren't quite so hard.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a thing.
No. You just suck it up, shove it down, and keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
And just don't talk about it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And some of those things have absolutely not changed.
Not enough. That's for darn sure.
Right.
That's for darn sure.
Whew.
Well, that's a lot.
That is a lot. It's not all.
Oh, that's not all.
But it was a lot. It has been a year of transition and change and transformation.
Yeah.
For more than this situation with one of my children.
Right.
At the same time, almost, my other daughter, who has been on the episodes before, Deidre, she had, last you were made aware, I'm not even sure what season it was, season 4 or 3 maybe. I think season 4 probably.
I think 4.
She had just had her second child, and in March of 2023, and she had been experiencing issues within her marriage at that time already. And again, I'm not in a situation to share things that are not entirely my story. Perhaps someday she will come on and offer details. But she found herself in a position at 3 months old, when Naraya was 3 months, that she was a single mother of 2 children. So about the very same time that Naraya turned 3 months old, and Deidre was headed back to her job, her work
after
full-time.
Maternity leave.
Yeah, her maternity leave was ending. She was going back to work. She found herself in a single mother situation. So she, of course, has Malachi, who is at that time he was like 2.5, just over 2.5, and then a 3-month-old baby. I'm not going to go into grave amounts of detail, but her marriage had fallen apart, and pretty quickly, and I guess from my view, relatively unexpectedly, though I'm sure that was perhaps a different view from inside the household.
And it may not have felt so quickly from her perspective either. Right.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. So since April or so of this year, so spring of this year, I had been trying to help Deidre at the same time try to manage going back to work, a household of 2 children and her, and trying to keep things afloat, really. Ultimately,
and you still had all this other stuff happening that you just talked about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we were in the 100% thick of it. Like, it was It has been a really tough year. Yeah, I felt like a lot of this year I was like on autopilot, trying to plug the dams, like just shoving it all in
There's
there.
Not enough chewing gum.
No,
is there?
No duct tape. No, yeah. So throughout the summer, navigating that with Deidre at the same time as, dealing with other things with my younger daughter. And by September of this year, our household had changed because Deidre had sold the house and she needed a place to live. So she and two of the most adorable, rambunctious, sweetest, amazing grandchildren that anybody could ever have been our housemates.
They filled your house, haven't they?
We are we're busting at the seams.
Your old house is loving it, though. As seam busting as it might be, your house loves it.
It does.
Yeah.
It has always loved people.
Yeah.
And this is no exception. I agree with that. I agree with that. It is that big old house is giving some really big hugs where it's necessary, and some love. So gosh, Deidre is navigating things, some things for the first time in her life, that she missed out on, I think, just because her relationship with her husband had been a long-term relationship. Like, it was
really her only adult relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Starting from like 14 years old, and she's 28 now. So it was literally half of her life. And really, like you said, the only relationship that she had. So she's learning things about herself that she really never had the opportunity to learn. Understanding things and creating, I think, boundaries for what relationships might look like in the future, and navigating through some of that.
Yeah, what she'll tolerate and what she won't.
Right. And, of course, that's a journey. That's a spiral. It's not
a one and done.
No.
I made a list.
Right.
Good for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the
universe laughs.
Right. And then you have to put it to practice, and then you say, oh, well, Jesus, I fucked that up. Like, let's try that again. Or, maybe I didn't realize that I was crossing that boundary, or I allowed somebody to cross that boundary, and now I need to sharpen up my list, because I didn't know it could look like that. Right. So those are all things that she is, working through and going to navigate through for a really long time. But she's also, learning how to be a mother of two children, at a really needy time, right?
Yeah.
Like, these two humans need you 100% of the time.
Right.
So she's trying to figure that
full.
Out. And
a full-time job, and
wearing
all the hats all at the
lots
same time.
and lots of responsibilities and feeling of overwhelm, and can I get a hot minute, right? A lot of things that we've talked about
for sure
on this podcast about boundaries and or lack thereof. Like, I'm watching her try to navigate these things, and I'm watching how women, as their children become teenagers and adults, are like, how the fuck did I get in this spot?
Right.
I'm watching it build, because I can see it now with two little people who absolutely need you.
Yeah.
There's not another choice.
There is no time for you to
do anything
other than selfless.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm watching.
Ooh, that's big.
This build itself, And then I come on to this podcast and I say, well, how did we get here? That doesn't make any sense. This is no fair. And it's almost like an innate thing.
It takes on a life of its own.
It kind of fucking blows my mind a bit. So that too, right? Because there's been a lot of trauma for her and a lot of triggers for her as well.
Sure.
The kids, like, Malachi specifically, has experienced a lot of things in his short life.
He's old enough to have feelings.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not that Naraya doesn't. She does. But he's old enough to have feelings.
Had those experiences. Right.
But not have the words.
Correct.
To talk about how he's feeling.
Correct.
So when he's acting out, a lot of that could be because he's 2 or 3, right? And this is normal developmental stages. Some of it might be because he's angry and has feelings that he doesn't know how to talk about.
That's right. And confusing. And
For sure.
like, his life has been turned upside down in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Some were natural because he had a little sister that was
came.
brought into
Sure.
The picture. But a lot of the other things, like,
it's big grown-up stuff that he's having to process without the age and experience and words to process.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, so it's been a fucker of a year.
Any of those, like, just pick one of those things that would have been enough for
a
decade, much less a year.
I'd agree. Like, I would 1,000% agree. I think in this last year, I've said this, I said it today, in fact, that, like, my own personal journey as part of this has felt like I've been pulled into the riptide. Like these issues, although I'm indirectly involved
You're
with
the
them,
support person in all of that.
right? Like, these things aren't directly happening to me. So that's been a bit of a challenge personally, because I'm enormously overwhelmed. Right.
Yeah.
But none of it is actually mine.
Right.
So that's been really tough too. And I'm navigating things I've never fucking navigated before in these situations.
Right.
So it's been really interesting to have it, like, impact indirectly, but feel very, very personal and direct at the same time. And through that process, I have I have seen the beauty, quote unquote.
Right. You say that with squinty eyes.
I do. Like,
you're
a
almost
question
choking on that
in
word.
my thought. It's like a perfect storm almost, where I am able to recognize things about these situations that are not directly my situations, but I'm gathering learning from them too. So, we talked a little bit about Liz and those triggers between the two of us, and my parenting style of conformance, right? And well, if it's not working this way, then you have to try harder. And if you still can't, then you must not be trying hard enough. Like, those types of things that were innate to me, and kind of honestly the way I live my life. Right. Like, add more effort if it's not working. Try harder if it's not working, to recognize the fault in it when it doesn't match the person. Right. So
it's not a one size fits all.
It's not. And it's like shoving a square peg into a round hole. And it does not work. Right.
No.
And then on the other side, with, Deidre and the experiences that she's been facing, right? I was a young single mother as well. Not exactly in her situation, but I was a young single mother. And interestingly, when I hear her overwhelmed and overstimulated and frustrated and dealing with a 3-year-old, exhausted and stressed, and like, the last thing that I need to be doing right now is arguing with you about, you know, what color cup you expect to be using in this moment. Some of the learning that I have in that is that I hear me when I hear her. I hear me from 25 years ago. And my overwhelm and my frustration and how that presented. And that's learning for me. Like that is another turn of that spiral to be able to say, so I did this. I know how it felt from an overwhelmed mom who like doesn't,
I just need to get dinner done.
Yeah. Like, give me
you're not cooperating.
Give me a fucking break, because this is the last thing that I need to deal with right now. And I just need you to do it.
Right.
And I know that feeling, right? I get it, and I empathize with her, and I see it. And then I also see the response from a third person point of view that I didn't have line of sight to.
Sure.
25 years ago.
You're half a step removed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're more of the observer than the participant.
Correct.
So you can see it more clearly.
I can see the broader scope. And that has been very humbling as well. Again, I have every ounce of empathy for that entire situation. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge to recognize that in myself, while I see it in her too. Yeah.
Wow. Clarity. It sounds like a lot of clarity. Very hard fought and hard won clarity. And even though you can see things more clearly, it doesn't really make it easier.
No,
right?
It doesn't.
You can't push Deidre inside and say, "I've got this."
No,
that's not fair.
No,
right? To anybody,
not. Right?
They have to figure out their relationship dynamics too,
right?
And if you swoop in to rescue everybody, well, that puts you again smack dab in the middle.
That makes that whole thing way worse.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
So while you have clarity, what do you do with it?
Well, first off, to your point, that would make that way worse.
It would.
And I often divert those types of situations. I said, that's a mom's question. Like, that I want, no, this is a mom thing. Like, I have my I try to create real boundaries around that, because it can get really slanted and upside down really quickly.
For sure.
What do I do with that clarity? It's clarity for me.
Right.
It's recognizing that I have the gift of seeing a full view that I didn't have for the last 25 years. So that clarity is for me.
For you. That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Even if it's hard.
Like I said before, the beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it is beautiful.
Is it?
It is.
It is.
It's beautiful in a perfect storm sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. I have no doubt in the world of what this very big young woman can accomplish.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that she is, I watch her every day. I know that she is standing straight back up And, you know, you dust your knees off.
Yeah.
You stand up. And ultimately, one day, you're going to say, thank God. Thank you, God, for that. It was hard. It was really tough, and it was hard, and it was not how I would have wanted it to be. But thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for rescuing me.
And I'm watching that.
Yes.
And that is also beautiful.
It is beautiful. Her moments of clarity will come too.
They will.
Right?
Yep.
Everybody gets them.
Yep. They will.
Yeah. Ooh.
Wow.
Wow, 2023, huh?
Yeah, that can we can check
just
that
put
off
that in the books
just
and move along
as
already.
quickly as possible from here on out.
Yeah.
I don't need any more doozies this year.
No.
But I will say that throughout this year, we're way over too.
It's all right.
Throughout
That's
this
arbitrary.
kind of throughout this year, this has been my grounding.
Riding side saddle.
It has been
Meeting every week.
Meeting you every week. Our, planning sessions oftentimes ended up being therapy sessions throughout the course of this year. And I'm super fucking grateful for that. I have wanted to quit this more times than I can count.
No.
And I couldn't, because this grounds me, and it gave me something in this year that allowed me to have something separate than all
Just
of
for
the
you.
stuff. So that all by itself, and then you. Like, I couldn't stop seeing you every week.
Yeah, you're stuck with me.
Like
it or not.
I could not stop doing that. So thank you for being my grounding and my anchor in this last year.
It's my absolute, total, and complete privilege. In 2013, I had a year very much like what you're describing. Not at all the same, but total and complete upheaval. And I had someone in my life who held that space for me. And I remember at that time thinking, I hope someday I can pay that forward. I didn't know it was going to be you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, my pleasure. I love you.
I love you too.
Woo-wee.
Yep. This has to
Now we're
end.
both full. Wow. All right. Well, 2023. We are just
We can
going
kiss
to
this bitch goodbye.
Yep, well, that what she said. We'll do that. Woo.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, signing off then for 2023, we'll say one more time thank you to Todd at Mind Garden Media.
That's right.
Because without him being a steadfast also, this wouldn't be a thing.
Uh-huh.
And there have been more times than I'm sure he would like, more times than we would like also, when we're sneaking things in under the wire and
Agree.
he's scrambling to get it done.
Agree.
And we've put him in a tight box more than once. So
We appreciate you, Todd.
absolutely we do. Thank you for tolerating us and still, tight box or not, you pull it out and present it on a platter with a bow and a beautiful rose too.
Every time.
Every time. So thank you for that. So if you are interested in doing a podcast, give Mind Garden Media a shout. They're on Facebook. You can look them up there. It's easiest to find them there. Their contact information will be there. And of course,
Our
if we didn't have
listeners.
listeners, we wouldn't be doing this either.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you to all of you for sticking around for, well, we're a year and a whole quarter.
Woohoo!
And, yeah. So thanks for that. Thank you for sharing and liking and commenting and
All of
the things, smashing all the buttons and giving us
Like, share.
Yes, like, share. Like and share. Again, smashing all the buttons and holding space for us to be able to do this as well. So thanks for that.
All right.
All right.
Until next year.
Till 2024.
Bye.
See ya.